Thank you for joining us this evening. The format of this evening will be around a 45-minute presentation with 15 minutes for questions. If we run out of time for questions, please still utilize the forms in the back of the room and turn them into a city recorder. We will attempt to address your questions by either reaching out to the contact information provided on the form or by posting on our website. We're pleased to welcome Elaine Howard as the facilitator for today's session, which will focus on understanding urban renewal and its role in our community. Elaine of Elaine Howard Consulting LLC has over 20 years of experience and has led more than 100 urban renewal projects. Her background in both private development and public service provides her with exceptional project management skills and a strong commitment to community-focused decision-making. Elaine has also worked with the League of Oregon Cities to teach urban renewal courses statewide, helping communities better understand and effectively implement the program. So
Thank you.
Elaine.
Good evening. Here. Good evening. I'm Elaine Howard. I grew up in Grants Pass, so I'm local. I like people to know I have small town values, so I'm very proud of that, although I do live in Portland now. And just so anybody knows, we're not war ravaged. You can come up and visit us. We're all okay up there. So I have a pretty thorough presentation to give you tonight. If you have questions, it'd probably be most helpful if you just wrote them down, because likely I will answer that question on a subsequent slide. And then if I didn't, at the end, we'll try to make sure we have plenty of time to answer any questions. What I will go through is what is tax increment financing and urban renewal. A little crash course, Urban Renewal 101, that just tells you how it works, how the tool works. Talk a bit about your own urban renewal area, and then have questions and discussion. So what is tax increment financing? Tax increment financing is the actual tool that urban renewal uses. So sometimes some communities use those two terms interchangeably. Urban renewal is the term that's used in the Oregon statute, and that is the authority to establish these areas, and tax increment financing is the actual means by which you get the money to run the program. It's traditionally used now as an economic development tool. It's unique in that it does have financing. So a lot of times our little cities will do a downtown plan, or we'll do a transportation systems plan or another plan, but we don't have funding to implement that. Urban renewal is a plan that has projects, but it also has associated funding that allows you to implement those projects. It is required to address, or to be formed, it has to have what's called blighting areas within your urban renewal area. Blight is determined in the statute. It has A through, I think, I, ABC definitions of what are blight, what is blight. It typically, in a city like yours, it is the lack of necessary infrastructure. So either streets or water, sewer, stormwater, those utilities, or underdevelopment of properties. And that underdevelopment can be just the need for improvement physically to the property, or a property that is vacant and needs to have development on it. Or it can be a property that's maybe zoned for a higher and better use than what is presently on that property. Urban renewal functions on increases in property tax revenues, although it is not a new tax, and we'll go through why that is in a minute. And it is used all over Oregon, and so this map shows up and down the I-5 corridor, most of your larger cities, up and down 101, most of the coastal cities use urban renewal, and then out towards Pendleton, LeGrand, most of those cities also have urban renewal as a tool. This slide is just blown up a little bit to show you near your community, the different urban renewal areas that exist. And I've worked in Southern Oregon, the ones that you can see, I've worked with all of those communities. So if you have a question about any of them, I should be able to answer. So urban renewal is not a new tax. It is a tool that is a division of taxes that's already paid, that would otherwise go to a taxing district, but instead it goes to the urban renewal area. So the way urban renewal works is at the time that an urban renewal area is established, the county assessor will establish a frozen base of all of the tax assessed value within that urban renewal area. The property tax revenue off of that frozen base continues going to all the regular taxing jurisdictions. So the city, the county, the school district. In Oregon, our property taxes, our assessed values go up only for two reasons. They go up because we have a 3% limitation on assessed values. Our property taxes generally go up 3% a year. If we do any substantial improvements to our property, like put in an entire new kitchen, or put on an addition, or if we do new construction on our property, the assessor gets to reassess our property and increase those property taxes more than the 3%. They get to increase them to whatever they think the value is at this time, not having to stick with that 3% limitation that was voted in by measures 47 and 50. So when an area is established, all those revenues go to the regular taxing jurisdictions. If you look up on top in the circular graphic, when an urban renewal area is established within a city, the increases in your property tax revenues, either from that 3%, or if you do substantial improvement or new construction, just within that urban renewal, the taxes off of that increased assessed value go to the urban renewal agency to spend within, whoops, this thing goes very quickly. You saw it start to come there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, there should be a lovely blue arrow that goes to the left there that shows the revenue over the time of the urban renewal area that will go to the urban renewal agency. So that is just the revenue off of the increased assessed value within the area. And that revenue comes from, and we'll see how that works on a couple more slides here, from other taxing districts. It doesn't come from an increase in your property taxes.
So it's just the 3% increase, not all of the taxes.
It's a 3% increase.
Yeah.
That's right. Every year though, so it's cumulative. So why do cities decide to use urban renewal? They use it because they have needs within their city and they don't have funding to address those needs. So they either need utilities. A lot of the urban renewal areas in which I work do the water, the sewer, the stormwater if they need it. They do streets. And they don't have funding to do those improvements unless they find some other funding source. Urban renewal provides that other funding source. It also can be used as a funding gap. If you're in a community and you're wanting new development to occur, or you're wanting improvements to properties to happen, because that will help foster more improvements throughout your community. Things looking better always causes the next neighbor to decide they want to improve. I saw an example of that out here on some of your storefront loans where it looked like the whole block used some storefront assistance. So sometimes a property owner just won't proceed with those improvements or any new development because it doesn't pencil out. It's not economic. Urban renewal can be used as leverage to help pay for some of those improvements or write down the cost of property to be able to make a project that otherwise wouldn't have proceeded, make it actually happen. That property improving can add more jobs, it can increase your tax base over time, it can improve just the visibility of your city. What people see who don't live here, who drive through the first time. So we talk a little bit about what is blight, and it is a precondition of any urban renewal area. I don't need to go through that anymore. An urban renewal area functions on an income source, and that is that increase in tax revenue that comes from the assessed value increase of your property. It has expenses, so it has to do an annual budget, just like your city has to do an annual budget. And it has a spending limit, so this is something different, and it's relative only to urban renewal and the way it is financed. So in Oregon, urban renewal, I believe all 50 states have some form of urban renewal. It's a federally authorized legislation that's enacted by each city. In Oregon, we don't put a time limit on urban renewal areas. We don't say they can't last more than 30 years or can't last more than 20 years. In Washington, they do have a time limit. They say 25 years. That's it. In Oregon, our authority is capped by what we call maximum indebtedness. Maximum indebtedness is the total amount of money that you're allowed to spend on projects, programs, and administration over the lifetime of an urban renewal area. That maximum indebtedness is established upfront when you adopt the urban renewal plan. So you have to make we have to make economic projections about what we think that maximum indebtedness might be in the future. So whenever we write an urban renewal plan, we do financial projections based on assumed growth rates within that urban renewal area to say, how much money do we think that they'll actually be able to raise over this time frame? Sometimes areas raise that amount of money earlier. Sometimes they raise that amount of money later. So the time frame is something that we estimate given our financial inputs. But what caps your ability to run your urban renewal area is that maximum indebtedness. Your maximum indebtedness gets tracked every year in your annual report, which I have been doing many years for you. And that annual report says there's a section in it that says the remaining maximum indebtedness is, and the amount of maximum indebtedness expended last year is. That way you all know, well, how much more money do we have to spend? That doesn't mean your area has to last that long. At some point, if you all decided it was a tool that wasn't working in your community or shouldn't work in your community, an urban renewal area can be terminated as long as it doesn't have any debt it has to pay. Obviously, if you have debt, you have to pay off that debt before you can terminate an urban renewal area. This just shows that concept of the frozen base assessed value. So at the time an urban renewal area is formed, the assessor establishes that. And then this shows that increment growing over time. That increment is that increase in assessed value over time. Typically, you issue your last debt about 5 years before an urban renewal area terminates. If it's a bond, it's issued earlier than that. And then you complete your projects in those final years. You can do projects all along, but you don't usually issue more debt later because debt goes on, usually it's 10, 15, 20 years. So you usually issue that final debt earlier, but keep doing projects until you reach your maximum indebtedness. This slide shows how that works if you just overlay that 3% assessed value growth that the assessor is allowed to do every year. So if you look at that hatch orange area, that is the amount of growth that would happen in the area if you only get 3% growth. And typically in the smaller cities in which I work, you only get 3% growth. Unless there's something great happening within that city, there's not a lot of new development that's causing your city to grow more than that 3%. By being able to invest money in infrastructure or in partnerships with developers or in storefront improvements, you're able to increase that assessed value growth. And that's what that orange without the hash mark in it shows, is that increase in growth beyond the 3% that's provided typically because you're able to do things as a city to incentivize that growth to happen as an urban renewal agency. So you can also see how those lines then show how much more money over time end up going to all of the taxing districts who, yes, they forego the money on the growth in that area over the time that you have urban renewal. But if your urban renewal area is successful, by the time the area ends and you keep getting 3% on that bigger amount of assessed value growth, the amount that all your taxing districts are getting is much more than they would have gotten if you didn't ever do urban renewal and you didn't invest more concertedly within an area of your city. My associate did a presentation at the League of Cities a couple of years ago, and a city council member came up to him and said, well, why can't we as a city just say, we'll donate our share of that property tax revenue to this area and not take it from the other taxing districts? And I said, well, you can do that. You know, you as a city can make a budgetary determination. What urban renewal does is allows you to leverage your tax rate. So this is for your tax base. The city of Sutherland tax rate is 46% out of, you know, if you're taking $1, 46% of that goes to the city. The other 54% is made up from all the other taxing districts. So by using urban renewal, you're able to more than double the amount of money that you have to spend within that area. Yes, it comes from other taxing districts. The other really important thing to note on here is 33% of that comes from your school district. Your school district isn't negatively impacted by that 33% because that money ends up going to the, if you didn't have urban renewal, that money goes to the state school fund, theoretically, all money goes to the state school fund, comes back out to the communities on a per pupil basis. If you have urban renewal in your community, or Medford has it, or Grants Pass, or Portland, none of that automatically reduces that per pupil amount that you get from the state legislature. So the state legislature does what we call backfills, both the education service district and the school district. So urban renewal is just a way to keep that money in your own community, knowing you're going to get that money back through the state school fund. Community colleges work the same way. It's not called the state school fund, it's called the community college support fund, but they also are backfilled through the state. So out of all that extra money you get, a large portion of that taxing district doesn't actually lose. So you're able to take that 33+% money and invest it in your community and not have a loss to that taxing district because of it. So the process of urban renewal, if any of you or all of you own property, you'll soon be getting your property tax bill and you'll look at it and you'll say, but urban renewal's right there. She said it didn't increase my property taxes. Yes, urban renewal will be on every property tax bill within the city of Sutherland. And it's very difficult to explain to somebody why it's there if it doesn't increase your property taxes. So we'll go through that. So what the assessor has to do every year when they calculate how much money will go to urban renewal is they look at the amount of assessed value growth within the urban renewal area apply the tax rate to that and see how much money they have to raise. So let's pretend they have to raise $100,000 because that's the taxes that would come off the increased growth within that area. They then have to distribute that $100,000 debt payment or payment to the Urban Renewal Agency to every property within the city of Sutherland, and then collect those revenues and distribute them to the Urban Renewal Agency. The reason they have to do that is because of measures 47 and 50. If you're my age, you remember when all of that happened. If you're younger than me, you think, well, what in the world was that? But measures 47 and 50 did that property tax limitation, and they said you can only pay up to $5 per thousand of your property taxes for education, $10 per thousand for general government. Those are the only two categories. If you have property taxes above that amount, then that has to be done through like a local option levy or a fire district levy or something where the voters actually approve it. So right after 47 and 50 happened, property tax bills came out. Shiloh Inn said, you have urban renewal here. And it's not under general government and it's not under education, and we don't think that's legal. And the court system agreed with them. And so the Department of Revenue got together with the county assessors and decided the only way, given measures 47 and 50, that urban renewal could collect money was to take it from the existing taxing district levies and have it not be a new tax on property taxpayers. So this is just a hypothetical tax bill. This just shows what the permanent rate is for the city of Sutherland, for anybody with property, so it shows all the different taxing districts, so the rate is 12.38. If you have a property value, assessed value, and now real market value and assessed value are different. Assessed value is the amount you pay your taxes on, of $200,000, and you had to pay taxes on that property at the rate of 12.38, you would pay $2,476 in taxes. If that property went into an urban renewal area the next year, the assessor then would do that first step of calculation of how much increase there was and how much property taxes from this property has to go to urban renewal. So you can see everything went up 3% to $206,000. The actual payment goes up $2,550. It goes into urban renewal. Is this a pointer?
Yeah.
Or is that just on? Okay.
I don't think it works on the TV screen.
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder something up and down. So on the far right on the top, you can see that the value is 206,000. If you go down one row, the amount paid to the city of Sutherland, if it's in urban renewal, is back to that $200,000 frozen base amount of $1,127. The difference in that comes down to that total line which says urban renewal $74. $74 is a 3% increase over what they paid in property taxes last year. That's the amount from this property that would have to be collected for urban renewal. The assessor will do that for every property within the urban renewal area. And that all together, and then go through another calculation to put that in everybody's property tax bill. But that total number for anybody else, that total $2,550 will not go up. The numbers for the other taxing districts will go down. So if urban renewal went away, you all would still be paying the same property tax bill that you're going to get in a couple weeks. It just would go to a different place. So the impacts on taxing districts, it doesn't provide new money. It's money that they give up. It diverts funds that would otherwise go to them. And except for the education districts, which we understand they get backfilled. They all continue receiving taxes off the closing base. They also continue receiving all the taxes and not all the growth off of the entire area of the city that's outside of your urban renewal area. So this is just for those properties within the urban renewal area. Anything outside, all those taxes still keep going up, going to the taxing districts. And then the question of that, does that growth happen because urban renewal came in and started doing projects? Or would that growth have happened anyway? In most cities, when people ask me that, I say, well, let's look at what your growth was over the last 5 years or 10 years. And that will tell you what your growth's been. And it's usually for small cities about 3%. So if you're getting anything over 3%, your investments are working. We talked about the school districts. This just shows that in graphic form that for other taxing jurisdictions, urban renewal does impact them directly. This is the state school fund. Urban renewal is up there on top, and it gets backfilled by these other sources. We did this particular slide, I think, in 2015-16. The same concept of this is the same. The numbers and percentages might have changed some, but these are the components of the state school fund and how they go about allocating on that per pupil basis. There are statutory limitations on urban renewal. If your population is under 50,000, you can have up to 25% of your assessed value of property in an urban renewal area and up to 25% of your acreage. Your existing plan cannot be increased by more than 20% of the original plan acreage. So if you had 100 acres, you can never go over 120. The maximum indebtedness, your spending authority, cannot increase by more than 20% of your original maximum indebtedness indexed by inflation, unless you get 75% of the taxing districts to agree to that increase. A plan is adopted or a substantial amendment by this process that's set out within the statute that you have to allow public input at every phase. Your agency reviews a plan or a substantial amendment and decides whether to send it out for public review. You have to present it to the county. The planning commission reviews it for conformance with your comprehensive plan. You have to have a city council hearing and notice to all of your citizens, and then a vote on a non-emergency ordinance. There are project limitations in the statute on what you can spend your urban renewal funds on. You can see work of a housing authority there first. None of you do that anymore. The interesting thing is that was what urban renewal in Oregon originally did. It was a housing authority. Portland Housing Authority was the first use of urban renewal in Oregon. Housing authorities don't do that anymore. Cities and counties have authorities to do urban renewal. But it's mostly the stuff that's in your own plan. And we'll go through your plan in a minute. How are we on time? Half an hour, okay. I'll speed up a little. Here's your boundary of the urban renewal area. So it is, your main street, your commercial strip, mostly looking to enhance that commercial area. If we can come back to the boundary later if you need to go into more on that. I just want to say that back at this map, you can see some of that right of way under the freeway. Not all of that right of way was included in your urban renewal plan because it used up acreage that you didn't need to use up. So the goals in your plan centered around creating quality jobs on industrial lands to attract investments. Include a special emphasis in attracting a grocery store and resolving traffic flow concerns in and around Dakota Street. Create a vibrant and beautiful downtown that includes people living and working here, entertainment, dining, community events, and boutique retail shopping. Eradicate and beautify blighted areas of town, especially locations along Central Avenue from the freeway to Central Park. Partner with the school district in creating a new multi-use sports park. The project categories that you had were sports park facilities, your downtown, and they had projects under all these: industrial park, Central Avenue corridor, and properties at exit 136 in plan administration. And you've done quite a bit for an area that's new. You've done a lot more than most new areas have done. So I'm really proud of you because it's awesome to see success. These are your urban renewal area grant recipients, and I got here early and drove through to kind of take a look at all of them. So if you want any details on all of those, I don't have any of the details. But your staff does. So Backside Outpost, Web, Cracks, Old Bank Building Restoration, sold to Sutherland, the Body Shop Turtle Fitness, Bugling Heights drafting, well, good job. And design, downtown parking lot purchased, paved, Salty Heifer, building improvements, Heavenly Hair, building improvements, Recruit, Umpqua Valley.
Home Builders Association.
Yes. Sutherland Drug building improvements, industrial park wetlands credits purchase. Other projects that have happened in the area that support your area, okay, not necessarily funded with urban renewal funds, but are help supporting the livability of your area and making people want to live and be in your community. Tractor Supply, Evergreen Family Medicine, Tesla Supercharging Station, Golf Course Housing, Central Plaza Park. You have a ton of events, Music Off Central, Annual Trunk or Treat event, Sutherland Throwdown, and the Oregon Showdown Truck Show, which I should bring my grandsons to someday. But I love to show the pictures of a community out doing what they're doing, because it just means you have a vibrant community, and that's really fun to see those. These are what your assessed value percentages and acreage are. So the assessed value for your urban renewal area is 18.37% of the assessed value of the city. You've grown in increment almost $50 million since this was adopted. That's a huge increment increase. The acreage is at 15.13%. So you're well within your limitations on either of those. Your maximum indebtedness is $23.3 million. That's your total spending authority. We did that based on a 25-year plan, not a 30-year plan. Some plans are 30-year. When we did this one, it was a 25-year analysis. I thought it would be interesting to look at the impacts to taxing districts. So I put up here what the actuals were for last year. I don't have them for this year, and what they were projected to be. If they're above what they're projected to be, that means you've grown faster than we thought you would. So that's good news. And the overall impacts to your taxing districts, the sooner you reach your maximum indebtedness, the better it is for them, right? So if you're above, that's good to them because it means you'll close out earlier, you'll reach that maximum indebtedness. So for the total for 24-25, the impacts were a little over 600,000, and we're projected at 527,000. So like I say, I don't always see that. So I was really happy to see that. Risk versus reward considerations. So I was told that this is a question that has been asked, and I worked before I started doing urban renewal consulting. I've been doing it since about 20 years. 2005, I worked for the city of Portland's Portland Development Commission, and that was at a time not when all the bad stuff was happening, where they took away the Elliott neighborhood, but where we were actually investing in the downtown. And the thing that was always said to us is, if a private developer's going to do it, it would have been done. If it's not been done, it means there's a reason, and we need to figure out what that reason is and make it happen. And that makes a lot of sense to me. If you want your community to grow and it's not growing, why? Why isn't it growing? You know, is there some way you can help it grow? So risk for reward versus reward. The funding, the first is, the funding that you have is from all the taxing districts, so you're responsible to them. It's their money that you're using, so you have to use it wisely, right? There's a commitment to improve conditions in the urban renewal area. You made that when you adopted your plan. Many times, development would not occur but for the investments that you're able to make that cause it to occur. Whether that's infrastructure, some cities pay for system development charges, gap financing, providing land for a free or reduced value to make something happen that wouldn't happen otherwise. Urban renewal funds can be used as an incentive to encourage building owners and developers to undertake a project. And I find your storefront programs, once you get going on those, they usually don't end because you can go from block to block to block and encourage people to participate, and your downtown then just looks better from block to block to block every year. And then the final one is development is not happening. Ask yourself why and what you can do to help. That's what urban renewal is for. Urban renewal is supposed to do things that you can't otherwise do that improve your community. And yeah, the verbiage that they used in 1957 when they adopted it was cure blight. We don't use that kind of verbiage to describe our cities really anymore. But what we want to do is to make them lively and livable, and where people want to invest their money, and where we can create jobs and keep, one of the biggest things I hear in small community is we want our sons and daughters to come back to our community and have jobs that they can do here and not have to move away because we don't have any jobs or any place they want to go at night. What is success in an urban renewal area? Creation of an environment where people want to live, work, and play, new jobs, assisting existing businesses, improving the condition of buildings, increase assessed value, improved infrastructure, better recreation and cultural facilities for the community, better roads, bike paths, sidewalks, and maintaining historic assets. When I think about all the different urban renewal areas in which I've worked, those are the types of things that are happening within those areas. And so we'll go through these really quickly to give you more time. All of these different projects in Astoria were funded with urban renewal funds, or partially. So the Garden of Surging Waves, partially funded with urban renewal. The brewery, Fort George Brewery, partially funded. It leveraged other funds. Same with Astoria Theater. Got a grant from urban renewal, but got lots of other historic grants to make it happen. And of course, the Blue Scorcher Bakery, which is my favorite, is a small business within the Fort George Brewery. Restoring Coos Bay, so the First National Bank building, historically restored, the fishing pier out along the boardwalk, and they also have a Liberty Theater. Estacada did their version of a streetscape. It's wonderful. It's different from cities who have a lot more money, they'll invest a lot. This is perfect for their city, and has caused new businesses to come into their city that weren't there before all of this streetscape went in. But it's more painted concrete instead of using, different higher costing bricks or other materials, but it's beautiful and it's lasted. Good River, this is down on the waterfront. If you ever go down there, there was one building there before the urban renewal area. And there was a water treatment plant that smelled horribly. And it was really prohibiting any other development from coming in. So the very first project we did was an upgrade to the water treatment plant. So we got rid of that smell. Roseburg, this is an old area of theirs where they did a huge transportation project, infrastructure project that allowed for new development and jobs and the questions. So we can leave this up and go back to any slide, or we can take it down. But this is your time to ask any questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do. Can you go back? Steve, can you go back to the pie slide?
Mhm.
Are you hungry?
Yes. It's dessert time.
Yes.
Did I have something wrong on it?
No, I would like for you to explain that. Can you
Yes.
simplify that
Yes.
in the explanation of it? Because you're saying those funds are backfilled, and
Yes.
it's not just like a simpler.
Okay, take a look here at the first column.
Mhm,
This is your tax rate.
correct.
So I took all of those numbers
I understand this one. very
and
well.
put it in a pie chart.
Okay, got it. Based on percentages. Okay,
That's your pie chart.
understood.
So for every dollar of taxes that you pay,
Okay,
46% of that dollar goes to your city. 33% goes to the school district. And then, you know, the other little divisions shown there by color. If your property's in a renewal area. And we're looking at the increase in assessed value in that area, and let's say that increase was $10,000. If you don't have an urban renewal area, 46% of that increase of $10,000 would come to the city. And all the rest would go to all the other taxing districts. If you have an urban renewal area, this property's in the urban renewal area, all of that money goes to the urban renewal agency.
Okay.
Not just the 46%.
okay, understood. Thank you.
Thanks for asking. I try to do them in different ways with different visuals, just because we all learn differently. So. Other questions?
Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Karen, would you like to come up?
Madam Mayor, I have two questions. So if I'm understanding this correctly, when there's a 3% increase every year that would normally go to the different districts, and 46% of that 3% would go to the city does not get that money that it might be using to pay their safety departments or other.
That's correct, but they're able to use that money to do other things within the city that allows them, so for example, they're able to use that money to do streets. That means your city budget doesn't have to pay for doing that street. So it allows them to spend money through urban renewal on some city. If they didn't have an urban renewal area, it would be a city responsibility. And then frees up some of that other money for other things.
Okay, but it wouldn't free up money for just general.
No.
For your safety departments, for
It's not used for certain things.
That's right. It can only be used for
Right.
capital expenditures,
Right.
so you're right.
Okay. And then you gave us a list of urban renewal projects, and I thought that the police station was on there for $1.5 million. Am I wrong in that?
Yes.
I don't know.
It's there.
And so one more quick question, do you have a time when you regain this money back that you're taking, and what is that time frame about?
This plan was estimated to be a 25-year plan.
Right,
So at that time frame, all of the tax revenue would go back to all the different taxing districts.
right, I understand that part of it, but for the 3% of the 46% that's not going to the city, do you have a time frame when you will recuperate all that money that has not been?
I haven't made that analysis.
Okay,
I have a question. So can you give us an idea? So for instance, I'm just gonna give an analogy. For instance, a lot of these 3% increments in the urban renewal area that may go into the city, that 47%. 46% that goes into the city general fund or whatever, that would take care of maybe police and fire and a few other things. And if we didn't have an urban renewal, and we left the city as is, then things could happen. For instance, it could start deteriorating. We don't have any growth, businesses leave, things, people leave. And with that, I can imagine, because I have been in different public sector jobs my whole career, that crime can increase, fire danger increases, things happen, right? And so you may need more police, you may need more fire, you may have response levels higher. And then using this money, you are bringing more businesses in, which actually raises your tax base, which brings more money in. Can you kind of talk about the differences of of the advantages of having this? And it may bring less money into our general fund right now, but that also, we may need less money in our general fund right now because of the advantages of having the urban renewal. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and I think you explained it really well. I'm not sure I need to add anything to that. What I tell city administrators when they contact me and want to talk about urban renewal, or ones who don't have it, is if you're investing in your own city, developers or building owners or people who have money and are looking on where to invest it are gonna see that the city cares enough to invest in their own city. Right. And they follow suit. And it's just like when I mow my lawn and put in pretty flowers, my neighbor ends up putting in flowers in their lawn. And then their neighbor does too. And it's a spin-off effect, and you can already see some of that in your own downtown.
And unfortunately, it does take a few years to get there, and sometimes that loss of funding may cost us a little bit in the interim. We will have to adjust, and we may have to do some things to cover that loss for a while, because it takes time to build everything up. But hopefully, the outcome will outweigh what we're having to do in the interim.
I think almost every urban.
I think you're in charge, right?
Oh, she is.
And I'm sorry, I didn't have my mic on.
Okay.
Right.
What you haven't really talked about, but you've shown it, is the significant increase in new property tax revenues at the conclusion of, in other words, if you're making $6,000, I think you had a number in there, if you just did 3%, anyway, but it actually goes up like 25-35%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
it shows that.
exactly.
And so at the end of the day, I think the school districts and all the taxing districts, including the city, benefit significantly from that picture right there. And I think the greater question that you answered is what would happen if we didn't do anything? And there we just plod along and hope for the best. Right? Okay.
There's a city not far from you, that I'm now working with. Over the last 10 years, they brought me in about every 3 years, right? And then they end up getting a new city council and people, and they didn't do anything. And every time I came, it looked worse. And finally, this last time when I came, I said, okay, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to be very honest with you. Your city looks worse than it ever has. I've been talking to you about this for 10 years. What are you going to do? You can keep saying we're not going to invest, and you can see nothing's happened. So that's the trade-off, I guess. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding the way this works correctly. The limitation on urban renewal agencies and districts is set at 25%. both for revenue and acreage. So if I'm remembering this correctly, this only affects 20% of our tax base. The rest of it continues on and grows as it normally would anyway. So the overall impact is not taking that money out of the entire tax bill and sending it to the Urban Renewal Agency. It's just about 18 or 20% of that, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
And also what you end up seeing happen typically is if your downtown starts getting stronger and you have new businesses, then you're gonna start seeing more residential development too. Because they see it as a place, and that's outside of your urban renewal area. So what you know, after your area is gone 10 or 15 years, you're going to see other development happen that supports what's happening in your downtown. Also supports your tax base because it's not within the urban renewal area. That's as long as you have undeveloped land in your urban growth boundary, but. Presume
That's her job.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I just. Or
Sorry, I
I
forgot.
don't know if it's a question or if I'm just. Trying to keep my brain from falling apart, but Larry Spielbush, I live on Old Street. Maximum indebtedness. Is there an annual maximum indebtedness that you have to stay below each year during the budget?
There's a maximum indebtedness for the entire term of the
Right.
plan. Your annual limit, wouldn't call it maximum indebtedness, but your annual limit would be equal to the amount of tax increment revenues that come in
Okay,
because of that increased value. Or sometimes cities after, about this time, may decide to take out a bond or a loan. So instead of getting, let's say $100,000 the next year, they get a loan for $2 million and they're able to do a bigger project.
Okay.
And then you can spend that down.
so the Urban Renewal Agency has a 25-year life.
Well,
Okay, let me go on.
I'm sorry.
What, that maximum indebtedness then can carry beyond that? In other words, you will get an additional increase in tax districts after that 25 years within the urban renewal area. That all then reverts back to the taxing districts. Is there a debt you're going to have after that, that's still part of the urban renewal projects?
I'm gonna answer two questions. The way we do our financial projections, if they tell us they want it to be a 25-year plan, all the debt gets paid off at the end of 25 years.
Okay,
Okay, those are the plans I've done. There are consultants who existed before me who didn't always do that. Any plan that I do, if I tell them it's a 25-year plan, our financial analysis says it ends in. But remember, we said, if your growth is slower, it may go longer than 25 years, but it won't exceed that maximum indebtedness number. That maximum indebtedness number is what will, once you've spent that amount of money, that's when your urban renewal plan terminates. And that's when all of that money goes back to the taxing districts. Where you are now, you're ahead. So if you keep on that trajectory, you should end by the 25 years and maybe before the 25 years, because you're in terms of the investments and the assessed value we thought you would have, you're ahead of that. You're doing better.
okay, so the urban renewal could have a shorter life,
It could,
but it could also have a longer life.
it could.
Based on the indebtedness that you've incurred during that.
It's based on how quickly or slowly your
Okay,
assessed
well,
value grows. So that you, because the amount of money you get each year is determined based on the growth of that assessed value. If that assessed value grows at a higher rate, you get more money that year. You spend that money, it comes off your maximum indebtedness. So let's say we have $23 million of maximum indebtedness, and this year we spend $500,000. Next year, we only have $22,500 left.
Right.
So each year that number goes down. And that number will go down faster or slower depending on the assessed value increases.
Right. Okay. So-
It's a
It's
confusing.
still
it-
confusing.
It is very confusing. And I don't think they wrote the statute, meaning anybody could read it and understand.
Yeah, because if you're looking at 25 years, within that, what is it, 650 acres, that's considered the urban renewal TIF boundary. So you're gonna receive some assessed value increase in that, that's occurred over that 25 year. Is it possible that then some of that tax money is going back to each of the districts, well, to the city of Sullivan? They would end up having to still have debt to pay off.
Not,
Your attempt should be that you don't have
that's correct.
debt when you reach that point.
Right.
Okay. That's your responsibility.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. It's interesting that you can have a process in place to reduce the amount of tax revenue to the city. What was the discussions had for how we were going to deal with that reduction? With inflation and all these other wild ass things?
You mean when you form
Yeah,
your
how-
area?
How can we afford to do that? Just for that 650 acres? I mean, what was the discussion about?
I'm not sure I remember what that discussion was, other than a recognition that through having urban renewal, you actually would get a lot more money
Yeah,
to your city.
you know, don't get me wrong, I think the urban renewal thing is a good idea. I mean, there's gotta be some way to get rid of the blight. I mean, there's gotta be something there to incite people to make their business a better looking business. Because there's a lot of areas when you go around and look, their main streets and everything are really nice. And it gives you a good feeling about that. But then somebody's gotta end up paying for that, and I won't have to, in 25 years, I'll be lucky if I'm still here. You'll be lucky if I'm not here.
I'll be lucky if I'm still here too, so. That's-
So is it safe to say, and I know you guys aren't gonna like this, that the public safety fee has been initiated to help offset that lost general fund revenue?
I would say that the public safety fee, it was implemented to ensure sustainability. If I remember right now, I could be wrong, I wasn't part of those discussions over 5 years
wasn't
ago
either.
when this was formed. But back then, inflation was pretty low.
Mhm.
We hadn't had significant inflation for a while, so I don't know that that was really on anybody's radar when it was formed. I mean, we always know it's an
Okay.
option, and I think COVID was kind of a game changer in terms of that.
No, we're just 18%.
No, but it was just 18%, so I don't know that it's a direct correlation. I'm just saying that we are seeing, we've seen some unprecedented price raises.
But it's going back down to a more normal
Wouldn't
level.
that be wonderful?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be wonderful if we could take another look.
Yeah, I was just curious because it seems, I mean, all the taxing districts had to say, yeah, we can, 650 acres and we're gonna lose 3% of the assessed value in that 650 acres for 25 years.
Okay, we're kind of out of time.
Yes.
Thanks, Larry.
Oh,
Did your question?
okay.
We're
I may
adjourned.
not-
Wait, I need, I have one thing I have to say. Is I just wanted to put on the record that I did respond to one thing on social media when a letter that was put into this. Was this, this part of it is for later? Later, I'm sorry, okay, never mind.
Karen.
And so this urban renewal workshop is adjourned.